we're going to start with aligning flowers, aligning the petals on flowers. And then we're going to start foreshortening those aligned flowers. And it's going to be pretty cool. So what I want to do is to just sort of start off with these kind of, like everybody to draw 4 of these crosshair circles. And so you're going to draw a circle, and then just put the plus mark through it. Try to make these as symmetrical as you can. If you've got a little lid for a pot, so on your piece of paper, Mia, you might want to use this. So you've got some little pot or can you can trace around the outside edge of it. It's going to give you a nice circle. So you want 4 circles, and then you're going to put those little, here you go. Put the crosshairs through them. And this is going to be a template, a sort of geometry template for thinking about the symmetry of petals with 3 petals, 4 petals, 5 petals, and 6 petals. Give you a moment to do that now. So Carolina, welcome. So what we're doing is in your journal, you're going to draw 4 circles. And you can use this as your trace. Well, you both can, but you don't have your journal out yet. So I am guessing by now some of you have those 4 circles on your page. And if not, don't worry, you'll have a chance to kind of drop in some of those other circles in a moment. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start looking at sort of I want to what I'm imagining this circle is the outside edge of one of these, of a flower. And if it is and the petal tips go all the way to the outside edge. So if it is a 4-petaled flower, how to get that drawing symmetrical is really easy. All you're going to do is draw crosshairs right through the middle of it, and where those crosshairs meet the edge of the circle, that is where you're going to put your little dot down. And what this dot is going to do is to allow you to draw your petals in symmetrically. So if you have I'm going to escape for a moment, stop this share. I'm going to bring you over to Nope, not that. I'm going to bring you over to here. There we are. So the way this is going to work is, and once you draw those circles, then just, oh, good, you passed it to Amelia. So you want to get your circle on there. Let's say this is my circle. And I've got a dot here, 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 and here. If I'm drawing something, let's say a brassica, a mustard, and it's got 4 petals, and they all come out of the middle here, and those are narrow petals, I'm going to be drawing in those petals roughly like this, all right? And this is going to allow me to get my 4 symmetrical petals. So if there are narrow petals, this is how I'm going to do it. If I'm drawing something like a poppy, and there are 4 petals, but they're broad, what I think of is a line going from the center, and that line is then going to come up to, that line is going to come up to the edge of this little spot here. The next one is going to come up like this. And I'm going to tuck this petal in behind this one. you want to look on your flower. Do you have two petals? Are there any petals that are on top? Are there others that are tucking behind? But here at these sort of points between these, that's where your petal is, your petal edges are. So this allows me to kind of get symmetrical petals. So you could these dots then are either dot, 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 the tips of skinny petals, or where the edge of a broad petal comes out. And if there's somewhere in between, you get to decide. Right? So the symmetry for the four-petaled one is really easy. It's just those crosshairs through the center of the flower. And but when you get into other symmetries, there are some surprising and interesting things that start to happen. So here we have our four petals. Let's now take a look at how to handle three petals. What I want everybody to do is on your three-petal circle, you're going to add in two more lines. One line right along the bottom of the circle. And so one line right along the bottom of your circle. And one line right between those two. So essentially what you've done is you've divided the bottom half of this circle into fourths. So that one line there in the middle of it, I'm gonna, where my little pointer is pointing, that one is halfway between the bottom and the halfway point of this circle. So if I get those points in, that's where I put my dots for my three-petaled flower. And then if I am, it's coming from the center here. Let's say I've got three big petals here. I'm going to make these ones pointy. I can put those out, and that makes this nice sort of symmetrical peace sign. If there are little sepals sticking out, like in a trillium, you'll see those sticking out in those spaces between them. But we've got now symmetrically spaced three petals. Try that? Yeah. But wait, there's more. Because if you can do three, then doing six is really easy. Here's your three. What do we do for six? Well, take a look back here at what we had with the sepals. Notice that those sepals are pointing out just between the three. So if I'm drawing in three more petals, let's say if there's six, say a lily family thing, if I was drawing in, you're just going to go halfway between those other petals. So if I have a circle with 1, 2, 3 spots on it, all I have to do is bisect, cut each of those in half, and now I have my circle evenly divided into 6 petals. And you'll notice also that on a 6-petaled one, there's always one petal directly on the opposite side from the other petal. So they're in these pairs. They've got one is one side, the other's on the other side, top, bottom, and then there's 2 on the right, 2 on the left. So draw in that symmetry. Let's kind of an interesting thing with 6-petaled flowers. When you kind of get into them, very often the shapes of them are very similar. Botanists will often call these tepals because you can't quite tell, is it a sepal or a petal? And so we call them tepals. So if I've got my little tepals there, let's say I'm drawing blue-eyed grass, I would draw those in. And it's interesting, when you're drawing a 6-petaled flower, you will often find.
Daddy, they can't see it so well.
They can't see that so well?
Yes, yeah. You have to put the picture on the big screen.
Put that picture on the big screen. Okay, I can do that. I've got my technical support team suggests that we just take a look at this little inset with, or the screen here on the big screen. What we're kind of pointing out is that when I'm drawing a 6-petaled flower, even if it's blue-eyed grass where they're very similar to each other, if you take a look at the tips of these 3, ones that will make one set of 3, you'll find that the tips are slightly differently shaped than the other 3. And there will be 3 that'll be a little bit more on the top and 3 that'll be a little bit more on the bottom. So that's a really fun thing to look for. Those look like bananas on yours?
No, there's
the
lines around.
Oh, this here looks like a banana. This is like a cluster of 6 bananas.
Yeah.
I like that. So there's your 6 symmetry. So if you can do 3, you can do 6. But wait, there's more. Let's jump back to
the dots.
Yeah, we're going to go back to
the circle dots.
The circle dots thing. And
put it on the big screen.
I'm going to put that on the big screen. That's absolutely right, Carolyn. Carolyn, thank you so much for pointing out that I should show people that big screen. That was helpful. Here we are. So for the 3, the 4, and the 6, it's been very clean, perfect numbers. So that is to say that this is the sort of thing that the Pythagoreans thought was absolutely beautiful. Like you just cut this in half and now you describe, an equilateral triangle off of the circle. And, it's exact. We get, but for the 5, this is where kind of imperfect numbers kind of come in. And this is something that would have driven the Pythagoreans nutso, because they would want to say, like, so where do I put my lines to get my 5-petaled one? And on this one, it is going to be a little bit messy. It's going to be a little bit messy. So here's it's not going to be this crisp, clean geometry. What we're going to do is we're going to draw in 2 more lines on this circle.
I think I'm not totally sure that we're seeing the same thing that.
Are you seeing
3 petals, 4 petals, 5 petals, 6 petals?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so that's what we want. So what we're going to do is I'm going to add 2 more lines to this 5-petal one. Oops, sorry. Actually, first I was going to say for your 6, what you do is you just put your dots halfway through that way, right? Yeah. Hey, Carolyn, have a really good class. Thank you for joining for this, and thank you so much for helping us know when to kind of go to the big screen. I hope you have a really good class. I love you. And now for 5. And this is, it's going to get a little bit messy. I'm going to draw in 2 more lines. Where exactly do these lines go? Well, the first line, this one on the bottom, goes a little bit above the bottom. So not at the it's not at this, where this sort of quarter point was. It's a little bit below that. And you notice that I'm not being specific here. I'm giving you all this kind of wishy-washy language. So it's a little bit below that. And the other one is a little bit above the center line. Notice that neither of these are a full quarter. And the one above, it's a little bit higher above that line than the bottom one is off the bottom. So the bottom one comes up a little bit off the bottom, and the top one comes up a little bit more than that. And again, I apologize, this is wishy-washy language, right? It's not like a crisp third or a quarter or anything like that. It's, we're going to come a little bit off the bottom and then a little bit more of that off the midline.
Somebody had asked a pretty good question, a way of visualizing it. She asks, if you treat the circle as a clock, would you say that the bottom line goes from 5 across to 7?
Oh, so in the, so this would be 12, 6, 3, 9. And then I will have to, I'll actually have to put my 12 points in and figure out where these guys put in. It looks like roughly that. These, yeah, that'd be fun to do. I should look at this 5 relative to a clock. Right now, I don't have the mental bandwidth to figure it out, but it looks like roughly that will get you in kind of close to the right place.
Thank you.
So for these, that's going to give you your last 5 points. And because we've got these sort of irrational numbers here, that's why I'm not able to be exact and say this is exactly at this point, exactly at this point. So the advantage of this is that the advantage of this is that I can draw a circle, and I can roughly go, you know, here, roughly like this, kind of down here, and kind of down here.
Could you maybe make it so that what you're drawing is bigger too again?
Sure. Like, let's do that again. Go for the Carolyn suggestion.
Yes. Thank you.
I am. Oh, I wonder. Oh, let's try this. Did it just jump back to that? Has it gone to the big screen?
We still are seeing 3, 4, 5, and 6 petals on the big screen.
All right, so I have to go with it. All right, so let me just sort of draw this in again. So if I draw a circle, what I'm doing is I can go like, I've got a spot at the top. And then the other one is going to be roughly somewhere up here. And the others are going to be kind of roughly down here. And then what I can do when they're just little dots around the circle is I can kind of go like, did I kind of get those roughly in the right place? Because at this point, it's easy for me to kind of, I'm going to move this one down here. No, I want to move it up there. You can kind of move these dots around a little bit. Like these two are a little bit, I want each of these spaces to be the same. I'm going to move this one up a little bit. Yeah, it wants to be there more. There, there, and there. And then it does not have to be exact, because flowers, even though there may be some sort of plan back there that's very symmetrical, you know, one flower may come up just, one petal may come up just a little bit kind of crooked, and the minute you're kind of adding in, you know, just a little bit of floppy petalness, you just want something that is roughly going to get you in the neighborhood. Right? And you've got your symmetrical petals. This approach with the dots around the circle avoids this problem. Here's the problem we're avoiding. If you ever drawn a flower like this, a 5-petaled flower where you drew in your first petal, and then you drew in the second petal, and then the third petal, and somewhere around here, you're realizing, oh, this, you know, it just the geometry, the symmetry of it just gets all funky. When we're doing it this way, with those dots, that's going to solve that problem. So that's this sort of under layer of geometry in the flower. Now, things are going to get really interesting. What we're going to do is we're going to take these circles and we're going to mess with them just a little bit. We're going to take this geometry, which I think is initially kind of straightforward to kind of get under your belt. We're going to see like what's the next level of working your drawing. Let me get that screen share up again. Avea, are you seeing 3, 4, 5, 6 on the screen there?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Well, now, here's what I'm doing. Right here, I've got my 5 petal one. And if you take a close look, what I've done is this one right, the second one over, I've got a petal pointing straight up. To the left and the right of it, I've rocked those to the left and the right just a little bit. And the one on the far right, I've spun it just a little bit more so that the petal is over here, so that actually one is straight up and one is straight down. And what I want us to first notice is that when we're kind of putting dots around a circle, the tip of one of your petals does not have to be pointing up on your page, right? It could be pointing any direction, and then you'd make the symmetry off of that. So you can have, so if you take your circle and you just put your dots at different places around it, you're going to be able to draw that flower then at a different angle. So all you're doing is spinning where that center line on the flower is.
I think we had a little trouble seeing your, okay, there we go.
Right. So rather than making it straight up, I just tilt it over to the side a little bit. And that is going to spoiler alert. So step one is your petal doesn't have to point straight up. But now, let me stop sharing. What I want to do is start to foreshorten these flowers. So I'm going to jump back to the Jack cam. Oh, actually, we can do this right here. If you have a flower, you can do this looking at the flower that's in your hand. If you don't, you can take a look here on the screen. But notice that the flower here is the outside tips of those petals inscribes a circle. I'm going to turn this over so you're not distracted by the petals. We've got a circle. If I tilt this flower, look at what happens to the outside shape of the flower. What was a circle is now an oval. So you see the same thing here with this. If I tilt this on the side, this circular surface is now an oval. So if I'm looking at something like this, I tilt it, and that circular surface is an oval. And the more I tilt it, the more narrow that oval becomes. If there are petals that are inscribed on the top of that, those petal tips still go to the tips, the edges of the circle, but that circle is now an oval. And what has happened is that the apparent size of each of those petals has changed. Notice that on the side here where this petal is, that petal still looks long. But look at the distortion in this petal here. It looks really short, but it looks wide. So I've got a wide, short one here. I have a narrow, long one right here. So as I tilt the flower, the dimensions of the oval changes. That is, it keeps the same width, but the distance top to bottom, the height gets smaller. The same thing happens with every petal on there. Let's look at this in a diagram form. What we're looking at here is all I've done is taken this oval and squished it. I take the oval and I squish it. So notice that this one is still pointing up, still pointing up, still pointing up, still pointing up. This one pointing down, pointing down, pointing down, pointing down. This one, to whatever o'clock it is over here, that is pointing in the same direction. So if I were to, whoop, all right, sorry. Notice, let's just take a look at this row here, and we're going to take a look at the top petal. Watch it get shorter. Now, let's take a look at the one on the far left. See that one that is pointing off to the left? Watch it get skinnier. So as it gets skinnier, it actually keeps exactly the same length. It just gets skinnier. This one in the middle that's pointing straight up, as I go down the screen, it keeps the same width, but it gets shorter. And something that is in between those two positions, like this petal right here, notice that it gets a little bit skinnier and a little bit shorter. So the ones that are in between, here's a good example of that. Let's take a look at this one right here, this petal here. As I go down, it gets a little bit skinnier, right? Notice that compare the width of this one and the width of this one. So the one down below is clearly skinnier. And also look at the length of the one on top and the length of the one here. It's in between both of those. Right? It's gotten skinnier and it's gotten shorter. Let's look at this another way. So here are the 4 circles that we had before. And what I'm going to do is, there's our dot. So that's where we started off. Is I'm going to take each of these and rotate them slightly. And what I've done is I've mathematically figured out the kind of ideal amount of rotation that gets these petals into a really kind of different position. For instance, with just kind of show you kind of what I'm thinking here, notice that if I take this 5-petaled one and I rotate it 90 degrees here, then I am, sorry, you know, if I go to this and I rotate it 180 degrees, then you're obviously just in the same mirror image position. How far do I rotate it to the side to kind of get it so that the petals are in kind of a different and interesting position? So that's what's going on here. I've got these and I've rotated them each just a little bit. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to squish each of these shapes, right? So we're going to do the same thing where we take that circle and I turn it into an oval, turn it into an oval, turn it into an oval, right? Into more of a squishy oval. Let's see what happens to, notice on the top row that the distances between the dots is all the same. Take a look at, say, the 5 one on the bottom or the 6 one on the bottom. Look at the distances between those dots. Do you see what's happened? As the circle gets squished, on the sides, the distance between those dots also gets squished, but only on the sides. Just like a petal that is going straight up doesn't change its width, the distance between where the tips of 2 of these petals would come out changes as we squish that oval. And so notice that these dots, they're all I've done is taken the circle and squished them, right? And as I project that down, because it's on this circle, the distances between the petal tips on that line change. It's totally counterintuitive, it's weird, and it's cool. Now, I'm going to put in just rectangles to represent the, narrow petals in there. And look at those as they go down. Like, let's look at the 4 one, with the 4. Notice that the petals on the sides get skinnier. The petals on the top and the bottom keep their exact width all the way through, right? And ones that are somewhere in between those are somewhere in between those. When you have petals that are pointing off towards the side, like take a look at the row of rotated 5, take a look at how the ones on the sides there, you can have petals really close to each other. But if you were making that up, think how easily your brain would want to symmetrically space those out so that they remain the same distance apart. See, this is why this visualization is so powerful. Your brain knows that those petals are symmetrically spaced. So when you're drawing it foreshortened, your brain wants to keep them symmetrically spaced. But that's not what you're going to be seeing. So knowing that, you're going to be able to look at the flower and go like, oh, they're over on the side there. Look at how close those tips are. Ah, thought you could trick me. I got you. I got you. Here's a few bonus positions. These ones I find are just a little bit more symmetrical, and so not quite as exciting, but still kind of useful and kind of fleshes out our possibilities of what we could see. But this little visualization here is incredibly powerful. So what I'm going to be posting on my site is a printout sheet that just has this diagram on it. And I'm trying to figure out, what is the way to make all of this information the most clear. But I'm going to be printing out and I'm posting today something that has this diagram with the spacing in these different positions as the flowers are oriented symmetrically and then rotated off to the side. So it becomes an asymmetrical petal pattern as you go down. Okay. This this little insight is very, very powerful for the drawings that we do. I'm going to just jump back to stop share. All right. I'm going to jump back to where is, there it is. So if I have my pattern and I'm going to draw a foreshortened flower, what I now am going to be able to do is just say to myself, all right, here's a five-petaled flower. And the shorter these are, the more broad I'm going to make them. This one is going to be nice and broad. And this one over here is going to be skinny. When you're looking at a real flower, you'll be able to, one thing you'll be able to do, which is easier than making it up in your head. You'll be able to look at your real flower and kind of, that's your circle. There's my petal tip. There's my petal tip. There's my petal tip. There's my petal tip. Right. So you're just copying whatever you see on the real flower, real time. So you don't have to make it up. But knowing that, oh, if you're over on the sides, you're going to be closer together. If you're not, there's going to be a larger space. Allows you to get these negative shapes. Look at these negative shapes here. Your brain wants those to be symmetrical.
Oh, could you please bring your paper? Oh. There we go.
There we go. So your brain wants this negative shape to be symmetrical with this negative shape. And this little study helps you not be able to do that, or be able to do that. There's one other piece to this that may be getting, this next thing that I'm going to show you is a really advanced step with this. It's the same idea, but we're going to take a look at what happens with this kind of foreshortening just at the tip of an individual petal or an individual leaf. Because there's a very counterintuitive thing that happens. And so this next step that I'm about to show you, if your brain is already feeling really full right now, you totally have my permission just to kind of kick your feet back and just kind of, watch with curiosity, but don't stress out about getting this next little point, because I didn't notice this for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. And I've talked to a bunch of botanical artists and I show it to them. They go, oh my gosh, like I should have seen that, but I guess I didn't. And you look at their drawings just look like great drawings. But this next little subtle thing, there's some very funny things that happen to petal tips when they are, not when they're straight out to the side, not when they're straight up and down, but how they get distorted when they are at kind of a 45-degree angle. And we're going to learn that now. And this is also going to be true if you're drawing a leaf that is pointing towards you and it gets foreshortened. right? It's going to behave in a predictable way. This side is going to be symmetrical with that side. If there's a leaf that is pointing this way and it gets rocked away from you, it's going to behave in a very predictable way. This top side equal to the bottom side. They'll keep their symmetry, but buckle your seatbelts, folks, because this is the extra bonus feature. I need to go to the screen share. There it is. All right. What I've got here is a diagram of a leaf, right? A diagram of a leaf, and I've got all those different positions. One is pointing straight to the side, one is pointing straight down, and what I've got is then just slowly getting it more pointing down. What I'm going to do is take this series of drawings and progressively squish it top to bottom as if it is, the leaves are being foreshortened towards you. So that this petal, this one here, you know how it's going to behave. This one here, as it rotates towards you, you're going to see it keep the same width, but the length of it top to bottom will get shorter and shorter. This one here will keep the same length, but the distance top to bottom will get shorter. But what about these things here? Let's check it out. Are you seeing that? This one down here on the bottom behaved just like we expected it to. This one on the top went, I got narrower. But look at this petal, this leaf right there. And you see a little bit of kind of a ghost of it here, subtler up here, but when you get to here, it's really dramatic. Look at the dark green side and the light green side. What is happening? You are looking at this edge from different angles. Here, that edge is pointing towards you and is foreshortened. Here, that edge is running along your field of view, just like this was. And it's changing the shape of the tip of these. So a petal that is pointing straight towards you, or a leaf pointing straight towards you, you will see the symmetry on it. But for years, I've been drawing these ones that are coming out at 45-degree angles as symmetrical. It's close. But then you look at, especially when you get to the tip of it, oh, that's different, right? So if I have, let's stop this share. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out a little leaf shape here. And if your piece of paper, if you printed out one of those things, like here's a little leaf shape, and I'm going to get this roughly symmetrical. All right, not bad. And I'm going to draw a center line through this. I am going to zoom out. All right, here we go. I take this and I tilt it up towards you. Whoops, I need to get it pointing right towards. All right, so when I tilt it this, I'm now running into that thing where if I move it to the right, it moves the opposite direction on my screen. It's hard for my brain to wrap around that. But notice how when it is pointing towards you, it looks symmetrical, but now look at the difference between this side and this side. You see how the far side is coming out straight, and at the end, it tucks in really fast right in here. This close side is a longer straight curve, but this one stays broad, and at the end, it jumps in. This one curves around. That is the distortion in the leaf or the petal tip that you will see at, if it's flat, you don't see that. If, on the other hand, it is, the leaf is pointing towards you and it's off at a 45-degree angle from you, this distortion appears. Now, this is super anal retentive and picky, right? And you're thinking, I just want to draw some flowers and I don't want to be like stressing out about, you know, some detail of this little petal tip. Whoops. And if, you know, these things, like I'm taking points and I'm kind of doing the math, if this is feeling like a super rigid kind of geometric system that is missing the life and vibrancy of the flowers, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I totally agree with you. But what we're going to do is we're going to understand some of these subtles of non-intuitive geometry, the subtleties of this non-intuitive geometry, so that when we're looking at the flower, we'll be able to get things roughly into those correct positions. Things like, you know, the petal tips, they're not going to be symmetrical. It's this really weird counterintuitive idea. When you're drawing the flower, your hand is going to want to make them symmetrical. But knowing this, you can just look back at the flower and say, what are you doing? The answer is always just copy whatever the flower is doing. But knowing that those tips are going to have that asymmetry to them, right? At those 45 foreshortened positions, you've got a fighting chance of actually seeing it. But if you don't know that that's going to happen, what you're going to do is exactly the same thing that I did for years and years and years and years and years, is I drew them all symmetrical when they're coming out for the 45. There's something that felt a little bit wrong and I couldn't ever figure out what it was. In future classes in this botanical illustration series, what we're going to do is we are going to learn just how to put all sorts of life and curl and nuance and subtleties and bug bites into our petals. We're going to turn our petals and our leaves back into these organic forms. But in the back of our head, there will also be this sort of geometric framework, so that your brain is going to be doing two things. It's going to be able to look at the flower, look at the petal, and say like, oh, I see your geometry. That's cool. And I can geek out about that, right? And I'll be able to get that down. Like, look, those two, like the negative shape between those two petals on that side is really, really skinny. And on that side, it's really, really big. Isn't that interesting? You'll be able to pick those sort of things out. And we're going to, in sculpting the individual petals, they're going to have life and nuance and all the little crazy things that they like to do. But that nuance and sort of liveliness is going to be on top of a template that also understands the structure and the very non-intuitive things that foreshortening does, especially at these 45-degree angles. So future classes, we're going to be twisting petals, we're going to be curling them, we're going to be doing all sorts of crazy stuff, right? This class, we're just going deep into geometry land. So it might feel like, because we're stopping here at the end of our hour, that is the end of the line. No, no, no. This is one layer of what's happening in your brain. And then we'll put the nuance layer on top of that, and you'll have nuanced lifelike petals that are in the right places. But if you don't start with this, you'll get a petal that looks all nuancy and great. But it's not going to fit into the geometry of the rest of the flower. So an individual petal will be like, hey, I'm feeling great. But it's not going to make sense in the context of putting it into this form of the flower. So my challenge for you this week is to go to a florist or out into the field, find some flowers, and geek out on their geometry. Start just looking at them straight down, this view. Then tilt it, rotate it, play with those things. And if you're feeling really bold, look at sort of, I'm going to say like, I'm going to like challenge myself to at least a couple of the petals are going to be coming out at the 45-degree angle in a foreshortened position. And I want to, on the real thing, be able to see what's happening there. Subsequent classes, we'll get into the nuance. But let's just play with this geometry a little bit. So think of these as kind of diagrams. You don't even have to think of them as a drawing, right? You're not trying to even make a representation of this plant. You kind of make a diagram and you want to see, can you see that geometry? If that happens in your brain, you'll then be able to put this other stuff on top of it and you'll be like, oh, I get it, I get it, I get it. I got the life, I got the structure, I got life and structure. You can have them both. You can have them both. And I think you're going to really like the wildflowers that are going to then start blooming off of your page. I hope that this was a useful workshop for you, that you had some fun here, and thank you so much for being with us. These classes are supported by donations from viewers like you. If it's possible to make a donation on my website, you go to johnmuirlaws.com and you can find the backlog of all the previous classes. I actually didn't put the last botanical illustration one up because I wanted to redo it. So if you notice, there's a little bit of the same content in this one as the last one, but this one was done better, right? Okay, so I'm going to put this one up instead of the other one. And but if you're able to make a donation to support me doing this, I greatly appreciate that. If that doesn't work with your finances right now, then please don't worry about making a donation. But I want to encourage you to do an act of kindness, stewardship, or service in your community in a way that's COVID safe, and see if we can just sort of bring up our general level of awesomeness and see if there's just something that you can do to make your world or community a better place. If you did that as a thank you to me for these workshops, I feel really, that fills my heart with joy, and it's really, really important. So deliberate acts of kindness, service, and stewardship in their community. And then we're all living in a better place. Also, if you are during this time in a financial hardship and you need journaling supplies, send me a private message and let me know what you need. If there's something that is on my store that you need and it's going to really kind of up your game and you can't afford it, let me know and we'll figure out what we can do to get you what you need. Also, some people will send me like boxes of art supplies. And they'll say, like, I found this in my attic. It belonged to my, my aunt, and she never used it. And here's all these watercolors or brushes. And so I've got a number of different sorts of supplies, and I can like make a little kind of surprise care package out for you. But let me know what you need, and I will do what I can to get materials into your hands that will allow you to do this. So the nature journaling is generally not a very expensive hobby, but there are some tools in here that will up your game if getting access to those things is a barrier. let me know. And I want you to know that I am here for you and I'm here to help you. And so John Muir Laws John Muir Laws at johnmuirlaws.com. I think that's it. Is the official business one. If you want to get on my personal email, that's at gmail.com, johnmuirlaws@gmail.com. And so shoot me a message, and I'm here to help you out. And thank you, folks, so much for being here. Let's jump over now to our community cam. And would love to see what has been happening in people's nature journals. And I'm going to remove my spotlight. If you don't want to be seen, just turn off your camera at this point. And let me see here. I'm going to the gallery, and all you have to do is take your journal and hold it up to the screen, and then I see you on the screen holding your book. I see Nicholas, I see Ray Bonto. So I'm going to start with Nicholas, Ray Bonto, and then Annette. So then LK. So it'll be Nicholas, Ray Bonto, Annette, LK, and then we'll see who is up. We're going to make it possible for you to unmute yourself. Yes, you can unmute yourself. Nicholas,
Hello, everyone.
Hi there.
Thank you for all your help today. It was amazing. Like it's so difficult, in fact, to draw these flowers, and I never imagined that in very nice tips. But
the thing that will make it easier is when there's the real flower in front of you. You're basically just copying that flower, but you're then trying to. But these visualizations will help you be able to do that. So abstracted without the flower, you're going like, oh man, what am I doing here? You'll find that this framework, when you have the real flower in front of you, is going to make it a lot easier.
Nice. Yeah, that's we're gonna wait a bit for the spring here for more flowers, but we will also use your trick of getting flowers from a place nearby and get this house flowers for exercising ourselves. But I wanted to actually jump on the drawing I made some time ago. Here it is on a polar bear. I had the chance as a biologist to do polar bear surveys in the past, a couple of years.
So you were out in the field with the polar bears?
Yes, but we had the chance to do this by helicopter with the government of Nunavut in northern Canada. And so I went back to them, and I wanted to maybe make a link to the lesson from early this week with the snow and the ice. And I was wondering whether, even though I did that on the white paper, whether I could build up some colors for it, because it's just a quick drawing from where we were seeing that we were getting close to them to be able to sex them and age them for the complete survey of that population some years ago.
That's really cool. Yes. So just a couple of thoughts on that. There's something that is really wonderful about, so the white bear on the white page, you've got these, what are called lost and found edges going on. So we look at like the nose line of that profile bear. Maybe we put that up again. It's disappearing into the page, but you know where it is. Sometimes we overtell with our journals. I think that with our drawings, I think that those sketches there do a really good job of, not having to lock everything in. There are some parts that, just like a polar bear, disappears into its environment. And I would want to kind of keep that feeling to it. But yes, for putting in color with something like this, you can, although what you might consider doing is doing a second illustration and then playing with the color on that, just so that you leave those ones with those wonderful kind of lost and found edges. I really, really like those lost and found edges that are going on there. and I'd be sad if those got kind of colored. So you can do several things. One is that the idea is you just want to think of dark against light and light against dark. Right. So if the polar bear is backlit, the snow behind it is brighter, and then you've got all those crazy blue shadows and things, and the kind of the yellows in the fur kind of coming out in your bear. And maybe along the edges of the bear, you've got where the sunlight is coming through that, these bright, highlights. If the light is directly on the bear, and so the light is behind you, then you can have bright bear, but you put in some dark background, and that dark background then makes the bear stand out. But then I would just sort of play with the idea that a big part of being a polar bear is not showing your contour. Right? That's its MO, its game. My favorite, Robert Bateman made this wonderful painting of a polar bear, and you look at it and it's like this big kind of dark painting, and then you realize that you're like this with a polar bear that is kind of appearing out of a snowstorm, and you're like, whoa, there's the polar bear, but it's totally hidden in it. So it's part of that environment.
They're really ghost in the storms of snowstorm, like you don't see them. That's for sure. Yes, and hiding this.
I would play with that kind of ghost idea, and then with the way we talk about that in art terms is it's lost and found edges. And so I'll show you just a couple of. Let me grab a sketch pad. Just a couple of thoughts to play with that. So if I have my polar bear, and my polar bear is somewhere in here, and if I just kind of come along and I say, here is the edge of my polar bear. Right? I've just done a very non-polar bear thing. Right? It's like, wow, there's a very bold edge between polar bear and the environment. And the whole idea of being a polar bear is that its contour is a semi-permeable membrane, right? That some places you're seeing that edge of the bear, and other places you're not. The things to play with is if I do have part of the back contour, let's say there's a little bump on the shoulder here and then a polar bear butt coming up, there can be some places where I'm kind of drawing that in, but there can be other places, as you did very effectively, where you're just sort of letting that line, if I've got a line that kind of comes this way and then that picks up here, people's brains will fill in that gap. So, but I'm intentionally minding the gap. I'm going to leave places where that edge is lost. And other things I can do is, let's say this is a backlit bear. I'm going to just sort of draw in some values in this area here. So the part of the bear that is kind of in shadow, you can actually get beautiful rich shadows. And then if the background is dark, then that also sort of shows your edge by contrast. Similarly, so if I can have place where you've got dark bear against light. So what your formula then is dark against light and light against dark. So if there's a variable background that is dark in some places and light in other places, you can play with on your bare surface what places your bare is dark and what places your bare is light, and kind of that form will, you're sort of playing with the sort of the idea of the subject ground
I have a paper for you.
thing. So some places I have, some places I'm kind of drawing the shape of the air next to the bear. Some places I'm drawing the bear, and very much like those wonderful illusions where, you know, if you're looking at it, it's a young woman, or it's the face of an older woman. You know, you want with your polar bear, sometimes you're looking at it and it looks like it's a pile of black spots, and sometimes you look at your polar bear and you go like, oh, it's a Dalmatian. Check out the Dalmatian illusion. And let me see if I can actually. Oh yeah, here we go. I am going to share something with all you folks. This is a one moment. There's Zoom. I'm going to share.
Yeah, Ramir, I have a paper for you.
All right. So here is a bunch of random dots. And when you look at it as a bunch of random dots, you see a bunch of random dots. When somebody says it's a Dalmatian, once you see the Dalmatian, you can't not see the Dalmatian. But until that point, it's a random collection of spots and blotches instead of a Dalmatian going exploring in the park. And I think that there's sort of your brain kind of dances between subject and ground, and that is you know, the polar bear can also have a lot of this sort of same energy and action. Was that of use, Nicholas? Was I?
Yes, that was awesome, and I think lost edges is a perfect word to think about it, and even like I think I can draw in my mind something with just these two words.
Excellent, excellent. That's I love seeing what you do with that. And the next time you're out serving polar bears, if it's COVID-free time, give me a call. I want to come play.
Yeah, you are highly invited.
Oh, that would be that's wonderful. Are you still doing that research?
For now, we do less polar bear research, but we do a lot of bird migration studies. All the birds nesting in the Arctic, especially shorebirds and the predators of the shorebirds, such as peregrines, gyrfalcons, and different species of Jaegers. And then we try to see the impact of climate change on them. And if we want to also to see when you have like more impact of human use of the land, like more ship coming into the ice bridges, and how that affect the concentration of seals, and how the polar bears are moving inland more and more, and then how they can eat more of the terrestrial birds. And then the same also impact on the Arctic foxes, the main predators for now, for all these migratory birds that are declining very, very fast. We lost, like in the last 30 years, almost 33% of most Arctic breeding shorebirds. So it's quite dramatic.
Say that again.
So we, in the last 30 years, we lost almost 30% of the breeding numbers in Arctic breeding shorebirds.
So, you know, this is in our lifetime. This is on our watch. And these are things that as stewards of nature, without the data and the evidence that you collect, we're not, we can't make real evidence-based decisions without that kind of data. So thank you for being out there on the ground and feeding those mosquitoes.
Thank you.
But also then the flip side of this is that we as citizens, this is the more that we can expand our bubble of responsibility, right? To include, people often start with themselves and then they might go to their immediate family, and then we can pass that out to the community, and then it's a leap then to extend that out into the birds of the that are nesting on the Arctic shelf there. They can't vote, they can't make decisions that affect climate, and we can. And so
all that work is done with the communities, the Inuit communities in the north, and then we try to have most of our research done not only with them, but also following their advice, what they see on the land, living there all the time, and then that's very important to do, but it's a work that we have to do every year. And with the COVID, we were not able to do much of that at all. Less transport to the Arctic, but we hope to go back there soon.
So on behalf of this community, thank you for your work in stewardship.
Thank you.
And science. So yeah, respect. Let's see, I think I said we're going to jump over to Ray Bonto. And I am not. Oh, there you are. Hi there. Add spotlight. Welcome.
Hi. So decided to just go in with some colored pencils, make a few circles.
Nice.
More circles, not 4.
Yeah, this is that geometry which we want to kind of track down. And I see you've got those leaf shapes showing the different angles. And it's so counterintuitive, so incredibly counterintuitive. That's really cool. And also just visually, I love the way that you play with different colors and stuff. Just everybody notice how this just makes you want to. It makes you want to experiment like this. It makes the whole process so much more fun and so much more playful. These little studies, you just throw some color onto it like this, and it's going to be. It's just a ton of fun.
Yeah.
This is great. So yeah, we're going to build on this geometric framework, and then learn how to put all sorts of crazy nuance and subtlety into those shapes that we make with the geometry and the angles that are behind them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Arpan, it's good to see you too.
Hi, Jack. Good to see you.
All right. Thank you both. Now, let's see. Next, we were going over to. Let's see. I got ahead of myself and I forgot who I'd said next. I think it was Annette and then LK. Was that it? I think so. All right, so we're going to jump over to Annette, and where? Oh, there you are. So
I just
tried to follow what you did and made myself some diagrams to remember all your advice. So I really I was aware of foreshortening, but I'm going to be looking a lot more closely now as to what happens at the 45-degree angle and when things turn. So thank you very, very much. I have a couple flower paintings that I did last summer from flowers in my garden. But
talk about lost and found edges and sort of playing with negative shapes in here. Hold this a little bit closer to the screen. Oh, how lively.
So that was just, you know, sketching and looking at what I was seeing. And I was a little more aware of it with this one, you know, as far as the symmetry and the foreshortening. But again, I was drawing by what I was seeing rather than in negative shapes, rather than thinking about what was happening with the geometry of it all. So now my brain is really on fire with thinking about.
Isn't that fun? Isn't it fun? Because you can take that geometry and splice it in with that deep looking that you're doing, and things open up.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make it all rigid. It just gives you this other level of seeing that can happen. Could we see that first botanical study? All right. So on this, I want to encourage people to notice those so the daisy, yellow daisy in the center right. Notice how it pops out, and you've got a feeling of depth and dimension in this. What is it that Annette is doing that is making that pop like that? And I want you to notice as you look at it how it's not an accident that there are dark values right around that flower. And notice also how when you go out on the tips of some of those petals right out there, you also have some lighter values right on the tips of those petals. Light against dark and dark against light. And the places where those contrasts play the most, that's right where your eye goes right into that spot. And so that's those are really effective strategies for playing with it. So she doesn't have to kind of get out there with a pencil and kind of say, here's the edge of this, here's the edge of this, here's the edge of this. She's letting the values do that. And she's also, by that change in the values, punched in a bunch more depth into that painting. Something that I really like about this is the way that there are parts of it that are soft and are fading into sort of the mist of the background. And then there are other places where she's crisply getting in there and you see the edges of the harebells and the daisies. And if everything was tightly done, then the painting would not have as much sort of movement and kind of life to it. So just as we saw with the polar bear, there are some of these have kind of lost and found edges. And there are places, think about kind of the role of the viewer's share in looking at artwork. So there's part that the artist does for you, and then there's part that you have to do yourself. And one reason why this is so effective is because she's making you work a little bit. And it's fun to work like that. And it gets your brain kind of in there and playing with that. Annette, thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you very much. Bye, John.
Right. I'm now going to jump over to LK. If you are there, we would. Hi there. Oh, you're currently muted.
Oh, yeah. So I just got my nature journal, and today I was drawing my mom's getting these plants because we're growing plants. So we've been growing plants in our house. And this is lentils.
Oh.
I've been drawing the quinoa.
This is great. So you've got all your starts and you're got those inside, and you're drawing those. I've also got tell us a little bit more what you've got. I think your mantle and your kind of kitchen window may look very similar to mine. These projects going on. What else are you working on?
Also, like almost every week, we've been buying flowers and from the florist. I don't know if you can see, but there's some flowers in the back. And like the way front with the big window. I don't know. It's kind of blurry, but.
Could we take a look at some of the journal pages that you've been working on, okay?
Yeah. So I've been drawing the tulip that we have.
Oh, and with these nice views you've got in the side and then looking down the throat of it, and very kind of Evea style, showing the different structures that are in there. Evea, I'd love to pull you in on this conversation too. Oh.
Absolutely.
And is that, oh, look at the detail. Look, Evea, check out that detail of the pistil. Zooming in on that pistil tip.
Yes, I see it. That's so cool. Like you get the sense that it will definitely like catch all of those little grains of pollen all over it. I love it.
Almost feels sticky to me.
Yes.
And also, there was this day that I was drawing dark-eyed juncos. Like whenever one popped up, I would just draw like some dark-eyed junco and like whatever they were doing. And my entire page was filled with dark-eyed juncos.
This activity, hold that, get that a little bit closer to the screen. This is something I'm going to suggest for everyone on this call. Take your local bird and love it. Get to know whatever is common around you so intimately. So because LK here has made all of these drawings of juncos, the proportions and postures of juncos are now going to be ingrained into her head.
Really?
Result of this is a different species of bird is now going to pop up in front of her, and she'll look at it and go like, oh, wow, that's got a really long neck or a really long tail. That's got she'll be able to make some notes about proportions or the angle that it holds its body, and it will stand out to her because she has now in her head a benchmark, a ruler by which she can measure every other species because she knows the dark-eyed junco so well. What some people do is they draw one junco and go like, okay, I got juncos. And, but no, look at how different all these are. And with each one, she's learning more and more and more and more about junco-ness. And that informs then every other bird that she looks at. When you first start looking at birds, people say like, does this have a big head or a small head? And you'll say, it's got a medium head. Is this a long tail or a short tail? That's a medium tail. Everything will be medium. And the reason is because you don't have a ruler. You don't have a unit of measurement by which you can compare all the other species. But once you spend your time digging in with the junco, that becomes the metric by which you measure all the rest of the species. This is so cool, LK. Awesome. Awesome journaling.
So also, this drawing of a woodpecker feather, I did because we have like so many things, because like I'm not going to find many woodpecker feathers right now, but I did. Well, other feathers, but I don't think I'll find one that's pretty big that I wanted to draw. So I found one because we have like so many stuff that we collect.
Oh, good.
And I found one on our bookshelf. And I drew it. We also have like so many other things, like turtle shells, possum jaws.
I'm just delighted that you've been
stuff.
collecting those things as you've been out and adventuring around. And in the middle of winter, those are such a gift. And sometimes, you'll see something during the summer, you pick it up and you put it on the shelf, and then in the cold of winter, when everything is covered in snow, out comes that turtle shell or the snail shell, and it's a chance to just see and discover. Oh, wonderful!
And also, I dissected a tomato.
Okay, Avea's leaning in. Oh, yes. And labeled it, these labeled drawings. I also like how you're using labels and arrows just to sort of show relationships between things and parts of things. You're really thinking like a scientist.
And I see that you know
And
the size too.
The what?
The size, I see, I can't quite read, but it says, I think it says equal size. So you were noting that that's accurate size. That's really awesome. The good notes, really, really clear notes. And those are the kind of things you want to remember too. Not only because then it reminds you of that day that you were studying it, but then you remember for next time, this really worked in helping me remember. So those are all like keys that you remember when you're doing future studies.
And I also had a question because like I wrote it down here and I said, why are most fruits round? And I listed like a bunch of fruits that are round.
Oh, that is a really cool question. What I like to do with a question like that is I will often try to come up with as many possible answers as I can. Sometimes when you go and you look something up, what people will do is what a lot of people do is they will kind of go for the sort of the first kind of plausible answer that they hear. But as scientists, we like to think of like, why could that be? And what are some possible reasons why that could be? And sometimes phenomena that you're looking at have sort of multiple forces and causes working on them. And there's also interesting ways to think about that. There's thinking about kind of developmentally, why did it kind of sort of development sort of why sort of in the short term, from the seed, why is it then coming out as this round thing? And you can also think evolutionarily as well. So over time, what has kind of brought these things to kind of a convergence on these round shapes? That's really cool. Great question. Great question. LK, I really see you thinking like a journaler, thinking like a scientist. The way you're diagramming, the way you're asking questions. Nicholas, as a scientist and somebody who's sort of spent time in sciences, what are your thoughts about kind of what you're seeing on these journal pages?
I just love it for the intricacy of the details. Like we love details as scientists. We want to know as much as possible. Samples is really like a key word as well. We need to have as many samples. And I see the exercise of drawing different birds or different angles of like it's a tomato, like you saw us. And that's something that helps a lot convey the general pattern, and everything gets better shaped in our mind. And if we do analysis, that's exactly what we want. We want samples and have a general overview of what's going on. And so I see it as a nice way to even teach statistics to young people as well, for understanding what's coming for our birds or for our mammals around us.
That's really exciting.
And
yes.
Also, I saw something really strange. I'm not sure what it was. So I saw this Junco pick up this thing on the ground, and it had like this circle at the end, and like I drew it. It looked black to me at the moment, but I'm not really sure if that's the exact colors. And I drew this here.
Can you get a little bit closer to the screen? Oh, and I'm seeing, again, this is, Nicholas, this is another example of kind of scientific thinking. So she's saying like, this looks black, and then she's got a little question mark by it. So on observations that she's not as solid on, she's also putting in kind of an indication of the sort of her level of confidence in that observation. So that's some very cool scientific thinking. I wonder what that's, we keep looking. I wonder if you'll be able to find other things that you'll like, someday we go out there like, oh, I wonder if that was the little thing that my Junko picked up. Because you've got these notes, we'll be able to go back and compare it. If that happens, you tell us, okay?
Yeah, and also I thought it might have been food, but like it's not, because Juncos always eat their food underneath the feeder and don't like fly away like chickadees and eat them like somewhere else on a branch.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw that it couldn't be food, so maybe it was nesting material because like spring is really soon, but I'm not sure.
So this one picked it up and then flew off with it.
Yeah.
You're right. So LK, your observations about chickadees and Junco feeding behavior, very, very good. Those are right, sort of nuthatches, chickadees, they'll come into the feeder, grab a seed, they'll go off, they'll cache it. Things like a Junco will just sit there and they will fill their tummy up to the brim. So you've been doing some very good observation of ethology, of behavior. And I love to see that. Thank you so much for sharing those entries with us. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what's happening in your journal soon. Let's jump over to Rachel, who has been very patient here. Rachel, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. And we're very interested to see what you've got going on in your journal.
So I drew a cypress tree. We were at Symmetrical Farms sitting by the pond. And we saw the cypress tree with no leaves on it.
So
We liked to nature journal it. Here's the picture I took.
All right. So I like the way you're adding kind of collage into your journal. So you can have photographs, you can have your drawings. So you're using found objects, the photographs you're taking. You're also drawing in your own drawings, as well as using written notes to describe what you see. And as nature journalers, we get all of those tools together, and that allows us to make so much more out of every observation. What for you was the most interesting thing about this cypress tree?
It was how it was kind of like had knees. So I found one that kind of looked like a leg with the knee. So that's my up close.
Are you in the southeastern United States?
I'm in the North United States.
What state would that be?
Texas.
You're in Texas. Cool. So we've got, the sorts of, so those cypress trees with those strange knee formations. Unfortunately, we don't have those out here in California. Our cypress trees are going in dry places and they don't have those crazy knees. Can you hold it up so that we can see some of the knee structures that you've got? That's such an interesting form on those trees.
I'm less experienced because I'm only 6.
Oh, well, but you're also an accurate observer and you are curious. And the more you do this, the skills are just going to keep coming and coming and coming and coming. And because you're starting when you are 6, because you're starting now, you're going to find that your abilities and your skills are just going to grow and grow and grow. What do we have here?
It's an earthworm we kind of kept as a pet, but I can't remember when we got these earthworms. It was probably in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
because we found them in the dirt.
Yeah, and I like the color variation. So I see the reds and the browns of the earthworm, the reds and the brown colors in there that really remind me of those the colors that you see in earthworms. Again, you're using pictures and you're integrating them with words, and
Up close.
and zoom in, zoom out. So those are that's you've got the naturalist toolkit going. So you've got words and pictures going on here. Zooming in on parts of things, zooming out on your cypress tree, adding in photographs. Oh, tell us more about this experience.
So we were at Stammer Farms again.
That sounds like a fun place.
In the meadow, and our grandma told us that because we're homeschooled, we're taught by our grandma. And she said while we were at Samuel Farms to play a guessing game. And you should pick something to nature journal. So my brothers Luke and Jude could guess it. And they guessed the right thing. And it says, I noticed that it has berries attached to it. I wonder what eats the berries. I wonder what seed the tree grows.
Yeah, those we use the same prompts. I'm also doing I notice and I wonder, and sometimes I do it reminds me of, and I think I know that game where you get to choose a plant and then you record your observations about it, and then you let Luke and Jude or other people in your family try to find the one that you did. And because you've got those written notes and the careful observations you've recorded in your drawing, other people are able to pick out that exact one.
Oh, you might not see this, but because it's really light, but it says the whole tree is actually 15 feet tall.
Oh, see, now you've taken it to the next level, Rachel. You've got words, pictures, and numbers. We use all of those together, and we have these three very, very different and really useful languages for documenting all of our discoveries and experiences. I'm really proud of you, Rachel. This is exactly how we should be nature journaling. Oh.
I was just playing with what I have been going in my mind. I tried to make a sunset.
I like those sort of colors blending into each other, and playing with just being willing to play on the pages of our journal. Great way to learn how all your materials work and just to have fun. We got to keep this fun. I want to keep this fun for everybody. Rachel, thank you so much.
Okay, so just gonna split this. Okay, here's my map. It's going from our grandma's house, which is home right here, all the way to, this was at December. This was actually at December. Last year. So our home is right here. And then next is the boat house that my grandma has next door. House.
Making little maps like this is also a very good journaling activity. So anybody who's watching this, I want to encourage you to consider including maps in your journal, little hand-drawn maps. Oh, this is really high-level mapping. yeah, you can come up with a symbol for the different sorts of things that you find. Rachel, this is exciting journaling. Do you enjoy nature journaling?
Yes, I do. I do very much because I get to spend time with Luke and Jude and my grandma doing stuff in the nature journal.
Those are such special family times together.
And the key says that stuff are snowflakes, mini Santas, snow dogs, Christmas wreath, Pampas grass.
The pampas grass?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because we have that like right in there.
Would you do a favor for me? Would you please tell your grandmother the next time you see her that I am...
I'm here right now.
Oh, Grandma's here right now?
Grandma?
Okay. We're going to just say hi to Rachel's grandma in just a moment. So if you're able to mentor somebody else in their nature journaling, it can change somebody's world. It can change the way that they see, change the way that they think. And you can see the power of these experiences because you're paying attention to the world.
Hi, Mr. Laws.
Hey there. We just wanted to say how delighted we are with what you have encouraged in Rachel here. Her nature journaling is
Thank you.
just so curious and observant and joyful. So you've
Thank you.
brought fun to this. You have, you're obviously role modeling it yourself. This is something I'm guessing you guys do together.
Yes, it is.
And this is, I just want to say, you rock. And you are an inspiration to a lot of other people in on the call here, just sort of seeing the seeds that you have planted in Rachel.
Thank you. We do it as a family. We all go out with our journals and do our thing. And then we've been watching also your short videos for kids as well. And they're very inspired to draw and to observe things and to find stuff.
That's fun.
So thank you for your teaching. We really appreciate it. We record this, so thank you.
Great. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Rachel. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
You're welcome. No, I have to do this later.
Let's take a look. Is there anybody else that wanted to share something that they have been working on? I don't see anybody holding something up to their screen at this moment. So in just a second, I'll turn off the recording. But before I do, I just want to thank all of you for your participation in this community, and want to just encourage you to find, if you've gotten off of like the habit and routine of nature journaling, don't beat yourself up. Just give yourself permission just to start again, and to have fun with that. To be safe, be kind, and this community is here for you. And thank you all.